You walk up to your ball, you drop the club head down behind it first, then you shuffle your feet, glance at the target, and swing. Everybody does it. It feels right. That one habit is the reason you aim right of where you're looking. It's the reason the ball starts on the toe of the fairway and drifts into the trees. And the best ball strikers who ever lived built their setup in the exact opposite order. I didn't believe it either. Not until I found a water-stained instruction book at an estate sale in a cardboard box marked $2 with a pencil note scrawled in the margin that said, "Never start at the ball." That note sent me down a trail that ended at a 68-year-old lesson from Ben Hogan, a spot on the grass barely 2 inches in front of your ball, and a fix you can rehearse tonight on your living room carpet with a club you already own. You don't need a coach. You don't need a launch monitor. You just need to stop doing the one thing everybody taught you to do first. Let me show you how I found it. It started with a video I hated watching. I set my phone on the ground behind me, pointed straight down my target line, and hit 20 balls on a quiet Tuesday. When I watched it back that night, I felt sick. The club face, at address, was pointed a good 30 feet right of my target on nearly every swing. My body was even worse. I was aiming into the right rough and then making a violent, subconscious correction on the way down just to find the fairway. I thought I had a swing problem. I had an aiming problem, and I had no idea how it got there. So I did what I always do. I started asking, where did this habit come from? Why do I set the club down first? Nobody ever taught me that as a rule. It just seemed obvious. The ball is on the ground, the club goes behind the ball, everything else comes after. But here's the thing I couldn't shake. When you set the club head down first, you're standing to the side of the ball, you're looking at the target out of the corner of your eye, across your own shoulders. Your eyes are not on the target line, they're about a foot inside it, up and over. And from that angle, your brain plays a trick on you. What looks square to you is actually aimed right. What feels straight is pointed into trouble. I found hard proof this wasn't just me. A research group that studies putting and aiming did a study with a device that measures exactly where a golfer points the face at address. They found the average golfer aimed several degrees offline without knowing it, and the majority missed to one side. Not randomly, but consistently in the same direction. Over the length of a real shot, a few degrees of error at your hands becomes 10, 20, 30 yards at the target. You're not slicing because your swing is broken. You're slicing because you aimed into the right woods and your hand saved you from going there. The fix has to come before the swing. It has to come before I ever ground the club. So I went looking for the golfers who didn't aim right, the ones who did it a different way. And that's where the trail got strange, because the method I needed had been written down clearly in plain English decades ago. And somewhere along the way, we quietly stopped teaching it. Here's what I dug up. That water-stained book from the estate sale turned out to be a copy of Ben Hogan's lessons, first serialized in a magazine in 1957 and printed as a book that same year. Hogan is still considered by many the finest striker of a golf ball who ever lived. And in that book, he lays out the setup as a sequence, a specific order of operations, like assembling something with instructions. What jumped out at me was that the order was not the order I used. Hogan didn't start with his feet planted and the club dropped behind the ball. He built the whole thing pointing at the target first and let the ball position fall into the sequence, not lead it. Then I found Jack Nicklaus, who won more major championships than anyone. In his book from 1974, he wrote a line I must have read 10 times over. He said he never, and he meant never, aimed the club face at the target itself. Instead, he picked out a spot, an old divot, a discolored leaf, a broken blade of grass, just a few inches in front of the ball, right on the line to the target. He aimed the face at that spot. Then he set his body parallel to the short line running from the ball to that spot. He credited the idea to his boyhood teacher, a man named Jack Grout, who had him doing it as a kid in the 1950s. Think about why that works. Because it stopped me cold when it clicked. Your brain is fantastic at aiming over short distances and terrible over long ones. Line up two coins on a table 2 inches apart and you can nail the direction instantly. Try to point at a chimney half a mile away and you'll be off by a house. A target 200 yards out is guesswork for your eyes. A spot 2 inches in front of the ball is a certainty. So these great players shrank the aiming problem down to a distance the human eye can actually handle. And they did it all before they ever built their stance. Now hold that thought, because here's where I started getting angry. If this was written down by Hogan in 1957 and by Nicklaus in 1974 in books that sold millions of copies, how did I, a grown man who has played this game for years, never once have it explained to me as the first thing, the foundation, the step before all other steps? Why did every quick tip I ever got start at the swing and never at the aim? And the more I dug, the more I understood who benefited from that. Follow the money for a second. There is an enormous business built on top of your slice. There are training aids, straps, and gadgets that clip onto your arms. There are lesson packages sold in blocks of 6 and 10. There are launch monitors that cost more than a used car, memberships that auto-renew, and swing subscriptions that charge you every single month to fix a ball flight that, for a huge number of golfers, is nothing more than bad aim wearing a swing costume. If the real problem is that you're pointed into the right rough at address, that costs nothing to fix. Nobody sells a subscription for standing behind your ball and picking a spot. There's no monthly fee in a free habit. So the free habit got quiet. And the expensive fixes got loud. That's the pattern I keep finding on this trail, in the home, in the wallet, and now on the golf course. The thing that works and costs nothing gets buried under the thing that costs you forever. But knowing the great players used a spot didn't fully answer my question, because I still had to figure out why placing the club head down first actively ruins the spot method. And when I tested it, the answer was almost physical. Here's what I learned by filming myself again, this time on purpose, doing it both ways. When I walked up and grounded the club behind the ball first, my eyes were already off the line, up and inside. From that position, everything I did afterward, picking a spot, aligning my feet, was corrupted, because I was judging it all from the wrong viewpoint. I was trying to build a straight line while standing off to the side of it. My depth perception was gone. My sense of square was a lie. But when I did it the other way, starting from behind the ball, standing directly on the target line, looking straight down it like looking down a rifle, everything changed. From back there, the line is obvious. The spot 2 inches in front of the ball is easy to see. The path to the target is a single clean thread. So I pick my spot from back there where my eyes can actually judge it, and only then do I walk in from the side and set the face to the spot I already chose. The club is the last thing to touch the ground, not the first. That's the whole secret hiding inside the title. I never begin with the club behind the ball, because the moment I do, I've already blinded myself. I begin behind the ball, on the line, where my eyes still work. And when I made that switch, my miss to the right shrank dramatically in a single afternoon. No lesson, no gadget, no swing change at all, just a different order. But then a bigger question opened up, and it's the one I know you're already thinking. That's fine for a driving range, where you've got room and time and nobody waiting. What about the rest of us, who can't get to a range on a weekday, who don't want to pay for a bay by the hour, who have maybe 15 feet of hallway and a garage full of clubs we barely use? Can any of this actually be built at home with what you already have for nothing? And that changed the whole question for me. But before I show you how deep this rabbit hole goes, I want to tell you about something I put together for people who want the full trail, not just the highlight. I've been writing all of this up in a series called First Fix, Deep Fixes, and System Complete. 3 books that lay out the exact sequence I found from the oldest sources I could trace in the order that actually makes it stick. If you've ever felt like you were handed the tip but never the reason behind it, that's exactly what these books are for. You'll find them mentioned in the description below. Now, back to the trail, because if the aiming error is baked in the second I place the club behind the ball, then the fix can't be in the swing at all. That's exactly the wall I hit. So let me pull you through it, because this is the part almost nobody talks about, and it's the part that matters most for people like us. You do not need a golf course to fix your aim. In fact, you can't really fix your aim on a golf course, because out there you have no straight reference lines to check yourself against. Everything is curves and slopes and rough. Your living room, your hallway, your garage floor, those are full of dead straight lines. And straight lines are the one thing your aiming brain has been starving for. Here's the first thing I did at home, and it cost me nothing. I found a room with a hard floor and long straight seams, the grout lines between tiles, or the edge of a rug, or the board lines on a wood floor. I set a ball, or a coin, or a bottle cap on one of those lines. Then I laid a second club flat on the floor along that same seam, pointing at a doorknob across the room as my target. Now I have a real target line I can trust, made of a straight edge the house gave me for free. Then I practice only the sequence, not swinging. Just walking in from behind, looking down that seam like a rifle sight, picking my spot a few inches ahead of the ball, and setting my club face to it over and over, 10 times a night while the kettle boiled. I was teaching my eyes what square actually looks like from the side by proving it against a line I knew was true. The second home trick is even simpler, and it exposed my error instantly. A mirror, any full-length mirror. I stood in front of it in my address position, club face aimed at my own eyes in the glass, and I could see in one glance whether my shoulders, hips, and feet were square or twisted open. You cannot see your own alignment on the course. You can see it perfectly in a mirror in your bedroom. That's free, it's private, and it never lies to you the way your field does. And the third one is my favorite because it uses the sun. On a clear morning or late afternoon, when your shadow is long, go out in the yard and take your stance so your shadow falls across the grass in front of you. Your shadow shows you the true line of your shoulders and the true line of the club, printed right there on the ground where you can study it. The old-timers knew this. Long before video, your shadow was the only camera you had, and it was always with you. None of that requires a coach, a range, a membership, or a single dollar. It requires a hallway, a mirror, and 10 quiet minutes. That's the whole point of this channel. The expensive fix is loud, but the free one works, and the free one has been sitting in your house the entire time. But I promised you the finale, the last piece, and to get it, I had to go back one more time to the oldest source on the trail, because there was still one thing the spot method didn't fully explain, and it nagged at me for weeks. Here it is. Even after I started picking a spot from behind the ball, some days my aim was still off, and I couldn't figure out why. Same routine, same spot, different result. It made no sense. Until I went back further than Hogan, back to the very earliest instruction writing I could find, and I discovered the piece everyone after had quietly dropped. I traced it to the writing of the great players from the early 1900s, the era of Harry Vardon, whose grip we still use today and whose book came out in 1905, and to a teaching professional named Percy Boomer, who wrote a remarkable book in 1942 called On Learning Golf. Boomer wrote something that the modern quick tip world completely forgot. He wrote that the setup is not a position you arrive at, it's a feeling you build in a fixed order, and that the single most common ruin of good aim is moving your feet after you've set the face. That was my missing piece. On my bad days, I was picking my spot, setting my face to it, and then, at the very last second, adjusting my feet, shuffling them for comfort, and every shuffle rotated my whole body a few degrees off the line I'd worked so hard to find. I was building the house perfectly and then kicking the foundation right before I moved in. So here is the finale. Here is the full sequence. assembled from Boomer in 1942, Hogan in 1957, and Nicklaus in 1974. Cleaned up and tested by me on my own carpet and my own bad slice, and it is simple enough to own by this weekend. Stand behind your ball on the target line and look down it like a rifle. From back there, where your eyes still work, find your spot. A leaf, an old divot, a dark blade of grass, no more than a few inches in front of your ball, dead on the line to your target. Lock your eyes on that spot and walk in from the side without losing it. Set your club face to the spot first, before anything else, because the face is what sends the ball, and the face is the promise. Now, and only now, build your feet and your body parallel to the short line from ball to spot. And here's the part everyone dropped, the Boomer rule. Once your feet are set to that line, you do not adjust them again. You do not shuffle. You do not sneak a peek at the far target and drift. You trust the spot 2 inches away because your eyes proved it, and you pull the trigger. That's it. The club is the last thing to touch the ground, never the first. The spot is close, never far. The feet are set once, never twice. And every bit of it can be grooved in your hallway tonight against a straight tile seam in front of a mirror for nothing. When I finally put all three pieces together, the change wasn't subtle. My aim tightened up more in 1 week of 10-minute living room reps than it had in years of chasing swing tips and buying gadgets that promised to fix a problem I never actually had. The slice that I thought lived in my swing turned out to live in my setup, in the order I did things, in that one innocent habit of dropping the club behind the ball first. And that's what got me. This wasn't hidden in some secret vault. It was printed in books that sold by the millions, written by the most famous golfers who ever lived, sitting on library shelves and in cardboard boxes at estate sales for $2. It was never locked away. It was just drowned out because there's no money in telling you the fix is free and it's already in your hands. So let me tell you what I really recovered on this trail, because it wasn't just a straighter shot. I got back the feeling that the answer was mine all along, that I wasn't broken and I didn't need to keep paying strangers to rent it back to me a month at a time. That's the thing they can't sell, and it's the thing they most want you to forget. You're the kind of person who wants to see the whole trail, not just the headline tip. You want to know where it came from, who buried it, and why it works, so it actually sticks. That's why you're still here at the end, and that's exactly who I make these for. So do this for me. Go stand up right now, or picture yourself over your ball, and be honest. When you set that club down first, which way do you think you've really been aiming? Left or right of your target? Tell me in the comments, left or right, and tell me if you've ever filmed yourself down the line and seen the truth of it. I read every one, and I want to know how many of us were aiming into the trees this whole time. Don't just think it, type it, because this audience is quiet, and I know you're out there watching without a word. And if you want to keep pulling these threads with me, follow along, because this isn't a channel, it's a small crew of people quietly taking back the practical knowledge that got replaced by things we have to keep paying for. Next time, I'm chasing down an even older piece of this puzzle, a forgotten note about how the old pros used the exact width of their own 2 feet to fix where the ball sits in their stance before anyone sold them a chart to do it. It's stranger than it sounds, and it might explain the other half of your bad shots. I traced it. Soon you'll hold it too. Here's where this video stops, but inside the practical wisdom circle, I pick right up, walking you through the full Hogan setup sequence, step by step. Ask me your own question, and I answer you myself, a real person, not a machine. You're not alone here. Folks like you are already inside. Just point your phone's camera at the code on the screen. Cancel anytime with 1 click. I'm David.